Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Hunter's Way. Today is June 29th, 2020. It's Monday. Finally getting episode out to you guys at the beginning of the week as intended. I know the last two came out late, but hopefully going forward I can stick to this schedule I've set for myself. Today's episode is about teachers, and as before, I want to start off with a bit of a backstory, some information about myself that pertains to this topic before I get into my main three talking points again. So, teachers, right? This isn't just about normal, like, grade school, high school, middle school, college teachers, although I will be talking about that. This is more about how every person is a teacher, or can be a teacher, to everyone else. And my own experience with this is pretty great because I've been lucky enough to have a crap ton of teachers in my life, and most of them family. I was lucky enough to have several households growing up to live in and learn from. My parents never really being together, I always switched between houses on weekends. And hearing that for most people is like, oh, that sounds terrible. Didn't have like a normal family. But screw that. I think it's better this way because A, I got multiple Christmases, so duh, awesome. And B, I got to learn from a lot of different styles of teaching and whatnot, so it really helped me develop into a better person, I think. So rather than just being raised by the typical nuclear family, I got raised by a whole village, pretty much. And so, as I said, as a result of that, I think I turned out pretty great. So first thing I want to talk about here is traditional teachers. People you'd find in a classroom of elementary, middle school, high school, college, you name it. And first off, these people don't get paid enough. Like, you've all heard the argument before, like they help teach the future generations, and they provide a very important service, and the amount that they get paid is just way too little. So, to start, teachers, you guys rock. You provide a very important job, and you need to be paid more. End of story. That being said, I ran into a lot of different kinds of teachers in my life, especially once I started going to college. Like, just, you really pick up on all the different teaching styles, and I think that also contributes to being able to develop as a person, is the more different kinds of people you run into, the more you realize what kind of teaching is effective and what's not, what you best learn from, because obviously not everybody learns the same. And so having multiple teachers in that aspect is really a great benefit to everybody. And that kind of leads me into the second point I want to touch on here is multiple teachers. So not only in a classroom setting is this helpful, but in a home setting, this is also helpful, as it happened with me, right? Because if you're only getting your information or you're learning from one or two sources, you're not really learning, and you're potentially not hearing what's right, because you're not hearing all sides of the story, you're not getting multiple viewpoints, and at that point you're basically just, I don't want to say being brainwashed because maybe it's not bad information, but you're just being taught by one thing, or just a handful of things, like not a big long list. And so whatever those viewpoints are, whatever those teaching styles are, that's all you have, and you don't have anything to compare it to, and you're basically just soaking up that source. And this applies not just to like people you learn from, because you can have teachers that aren't necessarily people, right? And so, like, as adults, we're supposed to get our information about the world from the news, right? So if you're only listening to one news source, you only have one teacher, in a sense, right? So if you're only soaking up that one thing, you're not hearing every side of the story. You're not being taught, you're not learning from all the different possibilities. And if the thing you're being taught is just wrong, then everything, all the information you have is also wrong. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is listen to multiple news sources. Like, you can see behind me, right? Nope. right there, that thing, is an Amazon Echo, and I get my news from that, and it plays every single news station there is, or at least all major ones. And as much as I don't like some of them, which will be unnamed for now, I still listen to them so I can get all sides of the story and know what is going on and make sure I have all the information and I'm learning and being taught from multiple sources. So that's that. Third thing I want to touch on here is teaching through stories. And so all the different styles I've ran into and all the different ways to teach people, I think the most effective I have run into is teaching through stories. And if you think about it, this is kind of how everybody does it naturally. Think of all your teachable moments. Think of all the lessons you've learned that you might pass on to other people. Most of the time, those lessons will be attached to a story or a personal event that happened to you. You know, there's a story to go along with everything. And that's how you pass on that information to other people. And I feel like that is a great and effective way to teach, right? Because you have experience and you want to share that experience with other people because you feel it's valuable. So you tell them a story, most of the times a story that happened to you. And coincidentally, this actually flows into the next major topic I want to talk about next week, which is culture. I won't get into it now, but teaching through stories is also how I believe cultures are formed. So I'll leave it at that. That way I have crap to talk about next week. But that's all I have for today. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Hunter's Way, and I'll see you next time.